Jacob Riis was born in Denmark in May 1849 and immigrated to the United States in 1870. After jumping back and forth between jobs, he became a police reporter, a job he enhanced with flash photography, a skill that he spent hours perfecting. In 1855, New York alone had 250,000 or more people per square mile living in houses called tenements. These tenements showed the vast social inequality between the rich minority of the era and the poor majority of the era. Riis brought triumph in this tragic social inequality by advocating for new laws, organizing lectures, and writing How the Other Half Lives, which heightened public awareness. Ventilation was one of the main problems of the tenement houses, along with fire, trash, and the spread of disease because of crowded areas. Both these two laws, the Tenement House Act of 1867 and 1879, tried to fix these problems, but ultimately did not succeed, or even in some cases, made the problems worse. It wasn't until Riis's work spread to the world that the New York legislature finally took action, which resulted in the Tenement House Act of 1901. This act required that the windows of the tenements be accessible for cleaning, and all public spaces should be lit. The act required metal fire escapes which had to be equipped with ladders, and lastly, it required an indoor toilet per every 2 families. The one thing this act did differently from the previous acts was creating a tenement house department. This department responded to any tenement complaints, inspected existing tenements to ensure they followed the new law, and lastly, they oversaw all new tenement building projects. Without Riis, the New York legislature would never have been pressured into creating the Tenement House Act of 1901, therefore never fixing the livability of the slums. Before Jacob Riis published his book, he spread the word of social inequality by doing lantern slide lectures, the first of which was called The Other Half, How It Lives and Dies in New York. This lecture and many others consisted of a presentation using lantern-powered slides, which shot the image on either a tarp tied between 2 trees or on the wall of a house. During these presentations, Riis uses these notes and emotional music to create a depressing environment. After the presentation, Riis then took on role as a tour guide to show the audiences the slums. As these lectures increased in popularity, Riis realized the potential for a book. Still doing lectures, Riis started to look for an editor. Kay Davis said, "The audience's positive response to the lantern slide lectures demonstrated to Riis the possibility of reaching a wider audience through the publication of a book." In 1889, the opportunity that Riis has been waiting for arose. An editor from Scribner's magazine approached Riis after attending one of his lantern slide lectures. This led to Riis's first magazine article, and then to a book. These lantern slide lectures were very influential in leading to the publication of How the Other Half Lives. Jacob Riis's How the Other Half Lives impacted so many people, such as Teddy Roosevelt, who said, "I've read your book and I've come to help." The best thing this book did was increase public awareness, which caused many people to pressure politicians into creating social reforms, like the Tenement House Act of 1901. How the Other Half Lives includes many pictures that Riis took himself. It includes beautifully written words to spark emotion such as, "Long ago it was said that one half the world does not know how the other half lives." How the Other Half Lives changed the lives of so many people in the slums, because it showed the wealthy the world they either did not know about or did not care enough about to do anything. The majority of the wealthy only cared about the half that was on top, and cared little for the struggles of the poor, just as long as they were able to increase their own wealth. How the Other Half Lives showed them the terrible living conditions of the slums and showed them that they needed to change. Jacob Riis tells the story of a family of 9 German immigrants, a husband, wife, 6 children, and a grandmother. Jacob Riis describes these German immigrants as honest, hard-working Germans, scrumptiously neat but poor. All 9 family members lived in 2 rooms. One room was about 10 feet square, and the other was a small hallway used as a kitchen. For such a small space, the family paid a rent of $7.50, which was more than a week's pay for the husband and father. In the end, the mother committed suicide by jumping out of a window. When Riis interviewed the other women in the tenements, they said the mother was discouraged. The health officers of New York didn't live in better conditions. Each day they would return after long hours of work, spraying disinfectant onto everything they could reach. Jacob Riis described this job by saying, through long summer days their carts patrolled the bend, scattering disinfectant in streets and lanes, sinks and cellars, and hidden hovels where the tramps burrow. After the work of earning almost nothing, they would return to the tenements that they were occupying. In this picture, there are 12 men and women sleeping in a space 13 feet across. 3 or 2 slept in the bed, and the rest slept on the floor. In the same building, there are 3 other rooms like this that were, within half an hour, similarly crowded. These 2 unimaginable stories that Riis wrote about are just a small portion of the life in the tenements. Another example is the colored family that paid $8.50 for a room so small that I was unable to get a photograph of it, even by placing the camera outside the open door. Or the young family that killed themselves because they were tired. The publication of How the Other Half Lives caused a huge disturbance in our country. It turned crowds of wealthy and influential people to push for laws such as the Tenement House Act of 1901 and other social reforms that eventually changed the slums into a livable place. How the Other Half Lives inspired so many people to act up and help the poor. It inspired people to not forget about the other half and all their many struggles. Jacob Riis, a Dutch immigrant that experienced the slums himself, changed how millions of people live. He showed the public the social inequality of the late 1800s to early 1900s. He inspired people to change the way they act, even the way they think. Riis created pressure on politicians to create new laws. He organized lectures that led to How the Other Half Lives being made, which inspired millions to change. Even today, Jacob Riis's triumph can still be felt as the world looks around at the homes surrounding us. Jacob Riis, an immigrant at the bottom, came from tragedy and morphed into triumph through his hard work. When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it was split in 2. And I know it was not the last blow that did it, but all that had gone before. Never stop trying was Riis's motto, and because of his motto, he changed and saved the lives of millions.